The following is a presentation of Foosball Radio. It's FoosTalk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk Live. Hi, I'm Tom Robinson, and I want to personally thank our Patreon pillars for their support of Foosball Radio. That includes James Sparky Castillo, Craig Topham, Chris Fuchs, Ekaterina Sarbolescu, Carl Fleischer, Jay Teal, David Kalla, Brian Schmid, Cameron Burrows, Mike Green, Jimmy Love, Dwayne Stewart, Judy Schober, Jamie Kunst, Rob Cutler, Reed Rector, Clay Toomey, Adam Gilson, and our friends from the 716 Buffalo Foosball Club. Thank you. Your support brings continued and expanding content from Foosball Radio as we cover the greatest sport on earth. Visit patreon.com/Foosball Radio to find out how to become a Foosball Radio patron. Learn more about the exclusive benefits we offer you. FoosTalk Live is brought to you by Original Leonhardt. The Leonhardt Tournament Model is the most popular foosball table at the ITSF World Cup. Designed and handcrafted in Germany. Order online and have it delivered to your door. Visit www.original-leonhardt-usa.com and use promo code FoosTalk to save 10% off your purchase price. Well, hello there. It's Tom Robinson with FoosTalk Live. Well, this is one of those nights. It's very unusual, I have to say the least, because well, first of all, we have a couple of circumstances. Number one, Adam Gilson, who is in Oklahoma this evening, is under the weather and suffering from the flu. And then we have storms happening in Mississippi tonight. But I think we might have Hannah D. Smith. Hannah, are you there? Hannah, can you hear me? Well, nonetheless, Hannah, are you there? Looks like we're having connection issues there, but there are some serious storms happening in Mississippi tonight, where Hannah lives, and so no, we're looking to see, of course, if we can actually get one of the greatest foosball play-by-play announcers of all time on the air with us. Jim, are you connected?
Somewhat, Tom. Barely.
Jim, we can't hear you. Are you there? We can see you.
Can't hear me still, huh?
Yeah, not hearing you now. Let's see if we can fix that. How about now?
Test 1, 2. Test.
Yeah, still not hearing you for some reason. Well, this is one of those nights where we're having a lot of gremlins, and it looks like Hannah D. Smith is having issues with her power because of the storms that are rolling through the South, especially in the state of Mississippi. Let's see if we can solve our issues. But as we go through this, essentially what we're going to be doing is we were intending for tonight's episode to feature a Hall of Fame guest. And so we're just waiting to see what happens. But if we can't solve our technical issues, what I will do is essentially just give you a quick update when it comes to Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State, of course, is happening this weekend at Magoo's, and Two Gun Productions, Tommy Atkinson and the gang are there holding a pretty good-sized tournament. And we just want to run down some of the results that are happening so far this weekend. I want to pass on some congratulations to the winner of beginner singles this weekend at Oklahoma State, Rob Polson. Looks like Robert Williams came in second place in beginner singles. Also at Oklahoma State, beginner doubles. Congratulations to the winners, which would be Keith Lewis and Randall Gage, looks like. They beat out Jennifer Laley and Rannon Sambar. Can't pronounce that name. Sambrano, I believe. Um, Continuing through goalie wars, it looks like Mike Green, our one of our faves, Mike Green is number one in goalie wars at Oklahoma State. In the open mixed competition, it was Tony Sprademan and Kathy Adkison in first place as they beat Tommy Atkinson and Yvetta Moore for the finals. In open mixed amateur singles, we had looks like amateur singles. The winner is going to be Tom Jenkins. Tom Jenkins. Well, that's pretty remarkable. Let's see. Let's make sure we've got that. Actually, no, wait. Hold on one second here. Yeah, it looks like Tom Jenkins is first place in open singles. Moving on, let's take a look at amateur singles. And amateur singles looks like we've got. Amateur singles was Tom Jenkins. That was the category we were just talking about. Open singles. For the results of open singles, Tony Sprademan beat out Brandon Munoz for the finals in open singles at Oklahoma State's. In women's open singles, looks like Isabel Stelly, red hot this weekend. She was beat out Liz Hill for women's open singles. In rookie singles, looks like Michael Swagger was number one in first place in rookie singles out of 23 players for the rookie singles. Moving on to rookie doubles. In rookie doubles, it was Bill Bailey and James Thompson taking first place, beating out looks like Alice Poe and Larry Jackson. Congratulations to the winners there. Also, results in for women's open doubles. Women's open doubles. Kathy Atkinson and Liz Hill beat out Isabel Stelly and Yvetta Moore for first place in women's open doubles. Let's check back in once again to see if we've got Jim Stevens. Jim, are you able to hear me? Are you able to connect?
Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Jim, again, for some reason, we're not hearing you at all here. Let's see if we can fix this. Let's see what we've got. And let's see here. I think, hold on one second. Try that again, Jim.
Test 1, 2.
There we are. Now we've got you. Okay. That was my fault on this end with my my headphone system. We just for some reason your channel was slightly disconnected. So when I plugged it back in, there you were. So you've been.
Well, that's interesting. And so you heard me with all my tests after all, perhaps out there in Radioland.
Isn't that
hi, everybody. Good to be here. Okay, I'm here to rescue Tom a little bit.
Well, I think
been one of those nights, huh, Tom?
I'm beyond that for sure. Wow. So yeah, I'm glad that we were able to connect here. No, it's one of those perfect storm nights. Adam, of course, down with the flu, and now, of course, Hannah D. Smith is holding on for dear life there.
You know, at some point, we're going to need a doctor's note from Adam because this is happening far too frequently. It's starting to become suspicious. He goes to a foosball tournament or doesn't go to a foosball tournament and is sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's been 2 or 3 foosball tournaments where this has happened to him.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Sometimes I know he has a young child, and sometimes when you have young children, they are exposed, in a variety of ways to a variety of things.
Yep.
And oftentimes they bring those things home.
Yeah,
so
it's very true. Yeah. So I was just thinking, wow, we have to kind of do whatever we can. And then, of course, when I wasn't able to connect with you at first, I'm like, wait a second, this isn't happening. But
maybe this is one of these shows where we pull the parachute pretty early, because obviously we wanted Adam here tonight, and of course Hannah, and we do wish the best because we know sometimes how those severe thunderstorms and possible tornadoes can be.
Oh yeah,
in the state of Mississippi in particular. So. Good luck to her, and hope all is well. And I think maybe tonight, for a variety of reasons, maybe you and I chat for a few minutes, and we at least keep our string alive of Hall of Fame chats.
Absolutely.
With that event now only 3 weeks away.
Speaking of tornadoes, maybe you remember it was I think 2, maybe 3 years ago when FoosTalk Live was relatively new. and I had to do what I could from the front seat of my car because of two tornadoes
Hmm.
within
That
two
was
weeks of each
awesome.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a great radio story, and not something would have been possible back in the day with a regular terrestrial radio,
Right.
but certainly something these days that you can do. Now, I also have appeared on this show in my car
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in America. I recall doing it down in Arizona one time, just sitting in the front seat of the car on my phone, of all things, and of course
Yeah.
at tournaments as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
sometimes we're going to be remote, sometimes whether we want to be or not.
We have to make it work. Best. The only way we can is just to move forward and make it happen, and that's it.
Yeah.
So tonight, I was going to keep everybody in suspense, but our tonight's guest was actually you, Jim.
Well, was is the
So
key word there, because now I have jumped right back into that co-host role by need before you got into too many beginner categories down there in Oklahoma. Um, but I guess the one thing foosball wise that's on my mind is the upcoming Hall of Fame Classic and what
mm-hmm.
that means. The Hall of Fame aspect of it, of course, the competition aspect of it also always so exciting in every division.
Oh
Some of our
yeah,
best matches there over the years have been in rookie and amateur divisions, pro competition as well. And we can expect all the greats to be there. They usually are, and from what I hear, there are also going to be quite a few players coming over from Europe and possibly from Asia as well
that's exciting.
to compete. And the biggest
Wow.
news of all, though, folks, of course, is that the great Tom Robinson will be there live as well.
Well, that's up for debate now, unfortunately. And
What?
I didn't get a chance to talk to you, did I? But there's been a snag, a fly in the ointment, sadly. But we can chat about that later. But
Maybe we go? Do you have the ability to edit what I just said and come back with? And unfortunately, Tom was supposed to be there as well this year, but
yeah,
isn't going to be able to make it
yeah,
apparently, and
it
that's unfortunate. I know he was looking forward
looks
to it,
doubtful
and
at this
as were
point.
we.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just one of those situations. It's kind of like I don't know. We all have things that occur sometimes, and this is one of those things that I just didn't see coming. So anyway,
Yeah, for sure. It's life, right? It's
yeah.
what happens in life, and maybe it feels like maybe since the beginning of COVID, which coincided with the beginning of this show, things
Mm-hmm.
have been more, fluid. At times you get some footing, or at least think you do, and then you got to start dancing again.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and sometimes that's just how it goes. I was in California all week
Oh,
on
okay.
a mini vacation of sorts,
Nice.
and didn't get home last night until almost 4 in the morning here in Durango. And then,
Wow.
of course, with kids and other things that I had to do today on Sunday, I'm still looking for a good night's sleep. But
So you're just
but
coming
sometimes
in.
you
Yeah,
just
coming
do
in
it.
for you're just coming in from a long week. You're just getting settled back in again.
I am. Yeah, we
Okay.
haven't even unpacked completely yet. But
Wow.
yeah, went out to Los Angeles for a few days and had a nice time there. Although it rained for 2 days, as it often does in March. Not. It never rains there in March, yet it did 2 inches on last Wednesday.
Wow.
And they've had so much rain out there in California. It's never looked greener, and the sun hasn't even come out yet. Once that sun comes out,
Right.
California is going to look like Ireland, as my kids like to say.
What's the
It's going to be so green.
what's the status of the drought there now? What's is it?
What drought, Tom?
Yeah, what drought? It's I guess what now? Some of the reservoirs are at 85, 80,
Yeah,
86%
they
capacity.
they emptied out. Yeah, they emptied out a bunch of reservoirs in order to fill them up because they knew what was coming, and it's still to come. Even,
Wow.
we'll see about Lake Mead, Lake Powell, those big reservoirs, the two of the biggest reservoirs in the country that are on the Colorado River that feed Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see about their status after all the snow melts here in Colorado, which it has not done yet. There is more snow in the mountains here than there has
Ah,
been in several decades. And so we're all those of us who live in river towns, and I do. I live here in Durango. It's on the Animas River runs right down through the center of town, and that
right.
eventually feeds into the San Juan River, which feeds into the Colorado River. And we have so much snow here locally in the mountains. And once that starts, we may even get some flooding. It's going to be a huge runoff, which should last all winter, or rather all summer long, which is good for the local rafting companies.
No kidding. Yeah, I can imagine. That's been unusually dry. I know, reading in the news about some of those rivers there in the far west where the water receded so far that some old mafia hits were coming back to
Yeah,
the
so
top.
yeah, so they weren't sure they were mafia hits until they found the guy in the in the can. When they said, "Hey, probably." But the other interesting thing too over the last few years, because the Colorado River, which is not a river like the Mississippi or like the Missouri or like the Ohio River, it's not while it's very long, it is not ever more than maybe a quarter mile across, maybe, and maybe not even that, maybe an eighth of a mile. So it's not a huge river. Yet major cities depend on it: Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, etc. All those golf courses in Palm Springs and Las Vegas rely on that water. And there have been concerns about the Colorado River. And over the last 5 years, the river no longer actually reaches the ocean.
Wow.
It actually just sort of peters out because we've taken so much water from it. Now we'll see. This year that could change.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's been so much water, and they'll have to let a lot of it through in order to run the electricity turbines in those big dams, and the
Sure.
Boulder Dam and the dam up at Lake Powell. So water will come through. We'll see if maybe the Colorado once again will reach the ocean.
The mighty Colorado.
The mighty Colorado, yes,
Wow.
formerly mighty
Formerly. But look,
Colorado. So
it's such a turn of events, and I guess anything these days can happen,
yeah,
including
no,
that.
that's sure.
Wow.
That's for sure.
Well, I was thinking we definitely want to do the IPA just because it's us.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you what, while the intro plays, well, I'd like you to talk about your IPA. I'm going to skip and grab mine, unless, of course, you don't have yours yet. But
No, I've got mine right here.
Okay.
I was prepared. I understand why you weren't. And
okay, well,
yeah,
I'll
I
be-
figured I was the guest tonight. I could skip the pre-show and everything would be fine. I'd jump in and I'd see Tom and Adam and Hannah, doing their thing, opening things up, and I would just jump in and be the guest, and really play the guest. But that didn't happen, which left Tom between a rock and a hard place. So go get that beer. You need it.
Okay, all right, I'll be right back.
What Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA.
This one, I've had it a few times on the show. It's one of my real go-tos. It's out of the Melvin Brewery in Alpine, Wyoming, which is up near Jackson Hole, up just below Yellowstone National Park. This is the Melvin 2x4 double IPA, and it's somewhat famous now because of this show and how often we have had it. They call it 2x4 for two reasons. It's a double IPA, and you get 4 of them in a pack. The other reason they call it a 2x4 is because it is 9.9 alcohol by volume, one of the biggest double IPAs you're ever going to taste, but it doesn't really have the taste, that heavy, super bitter taste or heavy taste that some double IPAs can have. It is really flavorful, a great combination of hops and notes of pine, citrus, and tropical fruit. So there it is. The Melvin 2x4 double IPA. It looks good too, doesn't it?
Oh, look at that. I made it back to see you drink it at least.
Yeah, no, that's one of my go-tos, Tom. That's the Melvin 2x4. I just was talking to the people about it, and if you want to know more about it, watch the show, would you?
I'm well known more than once for picking a can because of the way it looks.
Yeah.
This one, I'm going back to Founders.
No, Founders, sure.
Yeah, the old standby. This is Four Giants and the Haze of Destiny. We'll see.
The Haze of Destiny. You could not avoid drinking that. At some point, it was destiny that you would have this beer on this show.
Spoken like a true pro, Jim.
Yeah.
Wow. That is my destiny right there. It's a Founders. I don't think I've ever had a Founders that I didn't like.
Yeah, no, they're solid. They've been around for, I think, quite a while. And they were early as far as East Coast, east of the Mississippi brewers go. They were early on the IPA. And I think it paid off for them because they do quite well. And you find them pretty much everywhere in the United States. That is a very majorly distributed beer,
It's
and for good reason.
8.4%, which we'll take. I just really dig this label. I think it's just so good.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Not only is it an art form in terms of flavor and combination of ingredients, etc., the recipe and those who cook it, so to speak, the great brewers, but it's also the art on cans these days and the
Oh, yeah.
cleverness in titling them, etc. Is really it's really cool to be part of the IPA community and be a part of something that is so rich in so many different ways.
So this is from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and of
Yep,
course, founders. I think I, I'm honest about this. I believe I've got enough cans now to build an entire wall.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, I don't
They're
know
all
what the
different.
sound quality, whether the acoustics would improve or not, but it's worth a try.
Cheers to hoping that everybody is okay, including Adam and
Yeah.
Hannah.
Here's to Adam and Hannah. Yeah,
Mm.
and next week, of course, Steve Murray is joining us, I believe, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
Yes.
It's always great. We get to talk about his career as a Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
his induction, his involvement with the creation of the Hall of Fame, and of course the upcoming Texas State Championships as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hanging out with our old buddy, old dad.
Let's talk about the Hall of Fame in just a second here, but of course we have to look back first.
With great moments in foosball history, this is a FoosTalk Live.
Quick left hook, blocked away. Rebound comes back to Rob. And the pass along the outside wall. Second chance to win it for Tony. Spreadman calls a second timeout. Tony Spreadman puts the ball back into play. Sets it up, strokes it home, and there it is. Tony Spreadman and Robert Mares are the 2018 Open Doubles champions here at the Hall of Fame Classic. Great performance, great finals performance. Great shooting by Tony, great defending by Rob, and again, they are the champions. And a great performance by those two gentlemen here this weekend who lost reasonably early in the event, but came all the way back to get to the finals and had a great time doing it.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's FoosTalk Live.
2018 Hall of Fame Classic. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So long
Yeah,
ago.
that was the first year that we were at the Fremont Hotel, or I'm sorry, the Golden Nugget down on Fremont Street.
Okay.
The first year that we were there, and it was a great tournament. It was also the year that the North American or the Intercontinental Cup rather was played, where Europe sent a team over to compete against the United States, as did Asia and South America as well. Four-continent event that included some of the biggest stars in all the world of foosball. But of course, when we talk about American foosball, not going to find two bigger stars than the two guys who won there, Tony Spreadman and Robert Mares. And I haven't done the math on it yet, but those guys have won at least 5 Hall of Fame Classic Open Doubles titles and maybe more than that.
Wow.
If those guys play together at an event these days, they win that event. The only team that was able to defeat them over the years was Ryan Moore and Bobby Diaz, who no longer compete together. But when you're talking about the greatest teams of all time, and despite the fact that Tony doesn't play with Rob every event, and there's still a top 3, I would have to say, top 3, top 4 all-time great team on the history of the American Tour.
I have to say, in that moment just before they finished, it was a pass from Rob Morris on the wall from the 2-rod, and it was so beautiful. It was so perfect, and of course, it was easy for Tony to catch it, and then took a timeout, came back and took his time, and ended the whole thing. I mean, it was just mechanics.
Great team foosball, right? And these guys have played together so much, have practiced together so much that stuff's innate. Tony was there because he knew Rob was going to pass. And oftentimes, those guys know exactly when to do it, out of a timeout. That's the one thing. We've been watching NBA basketball forever, and we watch these teams call timeouts in situations, design a play, come out, execute it, score, win the game, whatever. It's the same thing with the great teams, and this one in particular. If there is a timeout called, look for a play coming out of it, especially if it's Rob having the ball during that timeout.
Yes.
They're going to call a play. It's going to work. I promise you, it works almost every single time when they call that play. They design that play in that timeout, come out, execute it as only they can do with that one-mindedness that they seem to have, that symbiotic relationship that this great team has. If they're playing in Vegas this year, I'd say good luck because second place is the best anyone else is going to do. And I'm not kidding.
Can we take that bet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll take them. You take the field.
Okay.
All right. We're in. All right.
Even Brandon Munoz? I mean, come on. There's always that possibility. You never know.
Again, obviously Tony Spredeman, greatest singles player in the history of the American Tour, third greatest, arguably greatest player in the history of the American Tour. Robert Mares, top 12, player all time. But again, when they put them together, it's an amazing team. And I don't care who Brandon Munoz plays with. I don't care who anybody else plays with these days.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to win, and they're not going to win a match against this team. This team usually rolls through undefeated.
Right.
It's usually not close. The only time it was when Ryan Moore and Bobby Diaz during the 2010s. It was always one or the other each year in Las Vegas who would win that title. And they would alternate years, and maybe occasionally one of those teams would go back to back. But those are the only teams that were winning that title during the mid to late 2010s. And again, it's the teamwork, and Bob Diaz and Ryan Moore had that. It was a different dynamic with them, but they still had that relationship. And we talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago with one of the Hall of Fame shows. Maybe it was the big show that we had with the three great Minnesota players. But teams used to play together, Wiz and Furry, and I was talking to Doug Furry about it, right? We were discussing this with him, how the teams always used to play together. They were teams, right? You didn't just grab the other great hot player or another forward or whatever. You had that same guy you played with tournament in and tournament out, and because of that, it elevated them. We talk about Spredeman and Mares being two great individuals. Well, 1 + 1 makes 3 with them. It does. They are that much. They are that good. They're so great and so great. You put them together, they're even greater.
Yeah.
And that's how good this team is. So I will gladly take them against your field in Vegas.
Okay. Well,
if they play, and I think they are.
Well, never mind. No, it's going to be exciting. There's no doubt about that.
It is, and I just happened to have this sitting on my desk here in the studio. This is Table Talk 1994 from October 1994, just after the World Championships, when it was a Rocky Mountain sweep. That's Tom's spear that you can kind of see on there being lifted into the air by all the Colorado people. A very famous moment, historically in foosball. But also that weekend was the first of 2 in a row in open doubles at the World Championships for Todd Lafredo and Scotty Weidman. And Scotty Weidman, of course, will be inducted here in a couple of weeks into the Hall of Fame. And this, everybody knew what a good player Scotty was. But then Todd took him in, got him 2 World Championships, although absolutely Scotty pitched in. The quote on here, written by this article in Table Talk, written by a gentleman named Sinclair Hawkins, who I had a very close relationship with. Pen name. But it's the second part of it. The first, of course, talks about Tom Spear and how great he was in singles. But the second part, the top of it, the little subtitle here is, quote, unquote, my partner's a lethal weapon. ESPN was at that event that year, Tom. And after that, immediately following that match, the ESPN talking head guy who later worked for WGN was the sports anchor there in Chicago for a while. I don't remember his name. I apologize. But he got down there right afterwards, and he talked to Scotty Weidman just the moments after they had won that title, the first of 2. And Scotty Weidman just simply said, my partner is a lethal weapon, talking about Todd Lafredo. And he was. I mean, nobody could touch Lafredo in doubles or mixed doubles. He doubled at that event in 1994 when it was a Colorado sweep with all 3 major events going to Colorado players. But Scotty Weidman, I'm hoping he shows. You never know with Scotty. I hope he shows up. Otherwise, we'll have to get Todd up there to accept, and that's never that much fun.
Well, I was wondering, wouldn't it be, certainly ceremonial if you had Todd step up and induct him, right? I mean, wouldn't that be?
That is up to each individual inductee to select who they would like to induct them. I can only assume that's who it is. The other one would be Mike Bowers if he comes, which he sometimes does. But it seems only, especially with there are 2 other top 2 finishes at the Worlds, including last year, the year before. But I would hope that it would be Todd up there inducting
Makes
Scotty.
sense.
And Todd can be a man of few words, but most of those words are pretty wise. So I'd look forward to that.
Well, Jim, this week, if Adam and Hannah were able to make it beyond nature's power, we were going to talk to you about being, of course, our special guest as a Hall of Famer. So now you're heavily involved in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you've been involved in its inception. So I just wanted to get a perspective, so I think people can understand what the Hall of Fame actually is, how it was based. Um, Now, of course, every major sport has a Hall of Fame. In fact, I lived in a town in central New York that had the soccer Hall of Fame for a period of time.
Hmm.
Didn't last forever, but it just seems like I was only 25 minutes from the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is a shrine.
Hmm. Mm.
So when it comes to the Foosball Hall of Fame, do you think there'll ever be like a permanent location for that Foosball Hall of Fame?
You'd hope so. That would be pretty cool, to have a plaques. And anybody who's ever been to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, that Tom was talking about, and
Hmm.
I've been fortunate enough to be there. There's a plaque for every Hall of Famer hanging on the wall with
Right.
their profile on there, with and whatever hat they wanted to wear. It's up to them, which hat they wear, representing which team. In some cases, it's a no brainer. In others, it's been a little tricky.
Hmm.
And it's possible, Tom, certainly, that at some point, depending on where the sport ends up going, that there could be an actual brick and mortar home of the Hall of Fame. Right now, it sort of exists in
Mm.
cyberspace, I suppose, and just in the minds. I mean, it's a real thing. It's almost a tangible thing. It is. If you get inducted into the Hall of Fame, you get elected to the Hall of Fame. Anyone who does, if they tell you differently, they're not telling you the truth. It's a big deal.
It
All right,
is.
it is.
Oh
It
yeah.
is a big deal. It's like the culmination of your career. It's being appreciated and recognized for the things that you accomplished, whatever those might be. In some cases, of course, it's not as a player; it's something else. But it hopefully at some point, yes, there will be. If I have to build it here in my garage, maybe that's gonna,
I was gonna say.
it'll encourage people to visit beautiful Durango, Colorado. If you haven't, you should. It's one of the real treasures here in
Wow.
America. But stop on in, and we'll bring you in and show you around the Inside Food Studio / American Table Soccer
Love
Hall of
that.
Fame.
That's
And I'll tell you, for me, I talked about it, I think, a couple of weeks ago, what a thrill it was for me to go in with Cindy Head in
yeah.
2006, and a huge thrill in 2019 to be inducted into the International Hall of Fame as well. And it's something that I'm extremely proud of, for
Yeah.
sure.
No doubt. Now, when you first started playing foosball way back when in SoCal, was there ever an idea or a thought that you might end up as a Hall of Fame member?
No, there wasn't. But as a big sports fan, of course, even then at that time, I've been a baseball, football, basketball, hockey fan, boxing, golf. List goes on forever, and I've always had a great appreciation for Hall of Fames. Right at the time, there was not one. In 1986, Johnny Lott. And Adam often brings out this magazine when we were doing the top 50s of these top 10 lists and these other
Yes.
things. This awesome little magazine that was produced for this tournament in Long Beach in 1986. And at that tournament, Johnny Lott, in conjunction with the tournament, introduced the first class of Hall of Famers. And I was there. I was at the ceremony. I was at the tournament and competed. It was in SoCal, of course. And it was exciting. It was really, really cool to
Hmm.
see this and to see these guys come out and with their acceptance speeches and how much they appreciated it and how much they, especially after what they had been through in most cases with the crash of TS, et cetera. It was really cool to recognize them. So a few years later, 1994, Steve Murray, who was kind of running promotions for Tornado Table Soccer down in Fort Worth, Texas at that time,
Right.
talked to me, and I had just kind of come on board that year as a commentator and announcer. And Steve Murray and I became great friends almost immediately. Of course, he was responsible for bringing me out, but he said, Jim, we need a Hall of Fame. And I said,
Mm.
it's a great idea, Steve. That's a great idea. Because there had been the one class and then it was not followed through on, et cetera.
Right.
And so we brought that one in, and in 1995, I had the first Hall of Fame Classic event where we
Okay.
talked about it, and then in '96 we began inducting people. You know who the very first player? There were 8 or 9 or 10 original inductees. This man wasn't and should have been, but you know who the very first player we inducted was into that Hall of Fame in 1996, and it was only one per year for several years. You know who it was, Tom?
Was it Mike Bowers?
Mike was already in. He was in
Oh.
the lot one. It
Oh,
was Doug
gotcha.
Furry.
Doug
It was
Furry.
Doug Furry. And we looked at this and we went, I said, Steve, and of course we put together a committee of 15 different people around the country that we selected, none of whom ever knew who the other were, by the way, at that time.
Okay.
But we said, it's kind of obvious here this first year, right? Who should go in? It was unanimous across the board that Doug Furry was the very first player put in 1996 in a ceremony, again, in Long Beach, California.
Omitting Doug Furry from the Foosball Hall of Fame would be like, well, omitting the Moody Blues from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, which took a long time for them. I know it was kind of a no-brainer there. When that list forever was compiled, what rock bands deserve to go in who aren't already? And when I saw that, I saw the Moody Blues on there.
Yeah,
they should have been in
long
10, 50
time
years ago.
Yeah,
this was a band that was formed in the mid '60s
mm-hmm.
and then transformed themselves into what they became. In very unique in their approach at that time. Yeah, but no, it was a no-brainer. Doug Furry was obvious. My thinking on that is that probably Johnny Lott in 1986 anticipated that there would be more following.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the one part we left out about that tournament was this was on the striker table, which was predominantly a Southern California wanting to be national table. And when they were built correctly, they were a very, very good table.
Right.
Lott had various rules on them where you couldn't shoot the same setup shot 2 times in a row. Oh. So my 2 shots were the push kick and the moving push kick. Because I didn't set it up. But I anticipate what happened that weekend was that the tables didn't get assembled until mid-afternoon Saturday.
Okay.
Tournament was supposed to start midday, early afternoon, Friday. And Lott just couldn't get it done. The parts didn't arrive, whatever. Wow. All his ducks were not in a row before the tournament.
Wow.
And it turned into a bit of a logistical disaster that weekend. Mm-hmm. And so Lott, after that, it took him a number of years before he ran another big major tournament. I think about 7 years before he ran another big striker tournament. That one was in Las Vegas.
Okay.
But I think he kind of figured that next year he would get that next class of guys in, right? Furry and Wiswell and guys like that, and himself, because there was never any doubt the reasons behind why he designed that Hall of Fame.
Wow, interesting. That's that is lore unto itself. the
and there's more to the story which we're not going to share here.
Okay,
but send your cards and letters to Jim Stevens, and I'll give you the full story. But it was really cool. Once Steve and I we got with Dave Currington of Tornado. Mm-hmm. The rule was Jim, Steve, y'all can't put anybody in who's still playing. And so that was the rule. You could not.
Why would that be?
Yeah. It's how it was in all the other Hall of Fames. Not all of them. The Billiard Hall of Fame, there's a couple of them where they induct players because you never retire, really, right?
Right.
And what does retirement mean, And so in this case, we first number of years, right up until I want to say 2005, there was only one player a year, and they had to be retired. Now, that wasn't an issue the first few years. Obviously, It was Doug Furry. It was Jim Wiswell. It was Dan Kaiser. Mm-hmm. Names like this, Ken Allwell, others who were no-brainers, right, are going to come in. They're retired. They haven't played in a while. That's no problem. But then it got to be to where, and I argued for this for years with Dave Currington and Tornado. I said, let's take this as a promotional opportunity. We can talk about this guy as a Hall of Famer right there on the table. This is Hall of Famer Todd Lafredo down there. And finally, in 2005, I want to say it was agreed upon that we could begin to induct active players with certain stipulations. They had to have been playing a certain amount of time and had to have been a pro for a certain number of years, et cetera. And the first year, obviously, at that stage, another absolute no-brainer in 1995. When Todd Lafredo, the greatest American player of all time, was inducted.
I mean, can you imagine though if the rule had held that you couldn't induct anybody who's still playing? I mean, Todd is still playing, and it's
still playing. Yes, still so to this day.
He wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame by now. Which
he would not be in the Hall of Fame, and that's remarkable. We want to get them in before they die because they're not quitting until they die. Todd's not going to retire, right? Knock on wood. And that's 20, 30, 40 years from now, folks.
Yeah, it kind of reminds, with the Baseball Hall of Fame game, they would play every year in August during the induction ceremonies there. They do like an old-timers exhibition, which I thought was a blast.
Well, coincidentally, they have also done that in Las Vegas, I want to say maybe 3 times, where they get all the it's a Hall of Famer only DYP,
There you go.
and I am a two-time champion
Are
of
you?
that. Yeah,
Wow.
one of those plaques up there on the wall is a Hall of. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, definitely want to see that. Oh, here we go.
There it is.
And that was the same weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep, the Hall of Fame.
That is so
Members,
cool.
DYP. Yep.
That is cool. Now, what did you win there? I mean, just was it doubles or
Or
singles?
that right there. That was it right there. We won that, and the admiration of millions. But that was about it. And I did, I believe I want to say I won both of them with Adrian Zamora.
Oh,
So,
got it. Okay.
and I played goalie for Adrian, except he would pop me up there into the forward position a couple of times.
Mhm.
And in the final, we're facing Todd Lafredo and Steve Biney.
Oh,
And
That's a
final ball, he calls time out, says, Jim, hop up here and take this shot. And I said, okay, I'm happy to hop up there. I love to shoot the ball, right?
Yeah.
And was there ever any doubt where I was going? First one, actually, Lafredo gets back there to defend me.
Mhm.
First one is a dink. The second one, of course, big time against Mr. Lafredo to win that trophy right back there.
That was
So-
victorious. It must have tasted so
Oh,
good.
it felt good.
Better
Yeah,
than the
it
best
felt good.
IPA.
Yeah, I ran around the arena high-fiving everyone. It was exciting. Yeah.
A la Johnny Horton. you mean?
Fanfare for the common man was playing in the background. It was awesome.
So, leading up to these moments of obviously of being inducted. So, as far as you're concerned, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, should it just be players, or should there also? I mean, you guys have also included promoters, and of course, you as a broadcaster. Should it just be players, or is there is there no dispute about that?
I don't think there's any dispute about it. I think contributors of whatever ilk I think are deserving. I know at the Baseball Hall of Fame they have sort of a separate wing
Mm-hmm.
where they bring in Hall of Famers. My idol Vince Scully, of course, being in there among others.
Right.
And they do it. They're still Hall of Famers, still treated as Hall of Famers, legitimate Hall of Famers. But no, I think here, there are people who have. Charles McIntosh, who was inducted a couple of years ago, was not inducted as a player, but as
Yes.
a promoter and businessman. All of the great executives over the years, from Lee Peppard on down, Dave Currington, Link Pendley of the Tornado Tour, of course. So I really like it, and I think it's a nice fit. And it's changed over the years. At times, it's been we're going to put in one man, one woman, and one contributor.
Okay.
That has changed again. I think now we're down to basically putting in two people.
Okay.
But there are still a few people out there, I think, who were contributors who deserve
Mm-hmm.
to be in there. And one of those, of course, is our great friend Brendan Flaherty, I think,
Right.
of Warrior
Yes.
Table Soccer and the things that he has contributed to. What a giving guy he really is. A lot
Mhm.
of bluster there, a lot of this, a lot of that. An occasional strangling of an official, but that official was Terry Rue, by the way.
Oh, no.
The nicest guy in the world. But despite that, he has been a guy that has contributed so much to foosball, and I hope at some point that we do get Flair in there as well.
Sure.
But I do believe, Tom, that it should be open to players, and there's still a few names, and of course, pretty soon, names like Tony and Billy reach 40.
Yeah.
And if they don't change the rules again to make it older, as they did when originally it was 35 up until a few years ago,
Okay.
those two will be getting in. But other than that, there are still a few names. We've talked about our good friend, a friend of the show, Bob Maloney,
Yes.
who needs to be in there. A top 50 player, a top 41 player, right, in the history of the sport, deserves to be in there. Auguste Trevino, 3 world championships as a goalie. I think that says it all.
Yeah. Right.
On a very tough tornado tour. So there's still some names that need to go in and a contributor to as well. Some lady players, I think Joyce Stewart, Stacey Fowler, I think need to be at the top of that list of eventual Hall of Famers. And I feel kind of like, and I do want to get back to your other point that you made about the people who vote for the Hall of Fame. And I want to talk about that here in a minute. But I think I had a little bit to do, maybe, with Scotty Weidman getting in, because it became a little bit of a mini crusade for me over the last couple of years, specifically here, but also on Inside Foods Telecasts, etc., to not forget what a great player this guy was and still is. And an obvious no-brainer, another top 50 player. We got to pick off all those top 50 players who aren't in the Hall of Fame. just because every top 50 player in the history of a
Well,
sport should be
yeah.
in their Hall of Fame.
Right, no question. Especially,
Oh, and the other thing, the voting. Originally, I had a committee. I ran it for 16 years, from 1995 through the early 2000s, early 2010s, rather, when it was taken over by Mary Moore and Kathy Brainerd and company.
okay,
And for me, it was a committee. Then it became all Hall of Famers. Now, what happened there was that all those older Hall of Famers, there's 30 or 40 Hall of Famers who no longer play foosball, have any connection to foosball, have very little interest in watching modern foosball for whatever reasons, busy lives or just years that have gone by, et cetera.
sure.
But they all had votes without really knowing, beyond about 1981, and maybe a couple of years beyond that, the history of the sport and who should be and who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And they were very susceptible, and I'll put this as gently as I can, very susceptible to influence from one person in particular, who was the guy who created the first Hall of Fame and probably shouldn't have had much to do with it after that. And unfortunately, many times people maybe were overlooked because of that. We'll put it that way. I'm not going to say that there are people in the Hall of Fame who shouldn't be, because I'm not going to look at it that way. If you get into the Hall of Fame, you deserve it.
Oh, yeah.
Every person who's ever been in that Hall of Fame, and I've hosted almost every ceremony, gets a big handshake from me, a look in the eye, and an absolute honorable, from the heart, congratulations,
Sure.
as they should. So, but maybe some players, because of that, because of he made a phone call 4, 5, 6, 8 times to each of these people and said, "This is who you need to vote for. I'll make it easy on you." And there were people who got in because of that. So that may be a little controversial, but I'm just giving you the
Okay.
facts. And again, I'm not saying any of them shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
So, and now with this, the process that takes place now, is it back to a committee that does this?
No, there is a committee that oversees it, which is
Okay.
good.
Okay.
And we do have the ability to perhaps step in certain situations.
Okay.
But now it is, again, still all those players. We have made it clear to that one individual that this isn't a process where you try to manipulate others. You let everyone come to their own. You give them the resources, you give them the information, which every ballot now has. All the information and the history of each of these players who are up for possible induction, and then you let the chips fall where they may, without
Okay.
influence from someone that maybe at the time you didn't know any better than to respect.
Let's talk about the actual tournament itself, the Hall of Fame Classic. What was the evolution of that? Now, that the first year of the Hall of Fame Classic, you said, was what, 95?
1995, down in Houston. Previous to that, it was the kickoff, the tour kickoff.
Okay.
But once we approached Tornado with this idea of the Hall of Fame, we said, it'd be nice to have a tournament that, featured this. This was a big part of it. And each year we induct the newest, at that time, inductee. And I actually suggested, I said, how about calling it the Hall of Fame Classic? So yes, it's something that I actually came up with. And Steve said, no, that's perfect, GM.
Yeah.
And
you do that too
and
well, by the way.
I do Currington much better, but we from then on, it was the Hall of Fame Classic. And over the years, there a couple of times it was changed for 1 year to the International Championships. Still had the Hall of Fame ceremony. We had it as the tour kickoff again for a year or two. Still had the Hall of Fame ceremony.
Okay.
And so every year since 1995, barring of course the two COVID influenced years, when Vegas said no.
Yeah.
They said, no,
Yeah.
you're not doing it here. And it's 2021. No, you're still not doing it here. And understandable. Vegas had a lot to lose, right? And they had to move quickly. But other than those 2 years, we've inducted at least one, and sometimes as many as 3 every single year in Las Vegas. And this year, looking forward to both Scotty Weidman and Gina Smith going in.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I think now when it comes to just going to a tournament like this, it's a normal tournament otherwise, though, right? It's so you go. And
I don't know.
Well, I get with the word normal. We could delete that if you'd like. But no, when you go to play as a player, let's say you want to go to the Hall of Fame Classic. There is essentially events, and you beginner, rookie, amateur, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That there are all those events there that are there as well.
They are. Some people have called it World Championship West because it is a very similar format. You do have events for everyone. If you've never played at a major championship, come on out. There's beginner events and lots of stuff. You'll have a great time. But it is basically, now you get a lot less sleep. Maybe you don't take care of yourself. And if you walk out onto Fremont Street, which is right out the door of the casino, you are
Right.
going to see things that you cannot unsee. And I warn people about that. Whether or not that actually influences your playing is another matter. But Fremont Street is one of a kind.
Yeah, I've heard that. I can't say I've experienced it. So that's yet to happen. Although there's a possibility, I guess this could be the final year for the Hall of Fame Classic in Vegas, but we're not sure about that. Correct?
Yeah, I don't know the details of that. I've heard that said.
Mm,
But we will see, and obviously it's always nice to have a tournament in Las Vegas.
yeah.
You're pretty much assured of at least a good turnout, and generally a very good turnout,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's Las Vegas. A lot of the international players like to come because it's Las Vegas, and of course it's the biggest entertainment capital in the world. It's the city that never sleeps. It's showbiz. It deserves to have a tournament each year. Now, whether that can continue, remains to be seen.
Right.
The current tournament model, I'm just not sure if it can continue like that,
Mm-hmm.
because generally speaking, to run a tournament in Las Vegas is not free.
Right.
Oftentimes as a promoter, if you find the right hotel, if you have experience doing this, if you have a history of doing it, you can get situations in pretty major hotels where you are really almost paying nothing.
Oh,
You're basically
okay.
guaranteeing a certain number of people
Mm-hmm.
based on the number of room nights sold. You can get these ballrooms, if not cheap, if not free, you can get them very cheaply.
Okay.
Um, but in Las Vegas, it's not the case. Las Vegas is a different animal.
Yeah.
They can book these rooms. It's not a big deal.
Mm.
They're not desperate for it. And so there's generally costs involved with that. And whether or not with this existing tournament model, as we've talked about it, whether or not that can be perpetuated into the future remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps in the future, when there does become a brick and mortar location for the Hall of Fame itself, maybe that will be the location for the tournament every year.
You mean we're building a Thunderdome attached to a Hall of Fame? I love it.
There you go.
Let's do it. I've got lots of diagrams of what I think a foosball arena should look like, as I'm sure many of
Oh,
you have dreamed about over the years. But
yes.
there is the perfect one, I promise you. And
Mm-hmm.
but having a Thunderdome with a Hall of Fame attached,
Wouldn't that be
Foosball
something?
Town, USA. Oh, it'd be
Oh,
amazing.
that would be something. What cities come to mind immediately? I mean, other than
I, I,
Vegas.
I mean, Las Vegas would be one, of course,
Yeah.
but Dallas Fort Worth area would be
Yes.
centralized. Such a great foosball there. Denver, Colorado would be another one.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's so much history, and of course where there's more Hall of Famers than from Colorado than any other state. Texas right there with it.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
think those are the two big ones: Dallas Fort Worth area, or Denver, and build a Thunderdome. And Mark Torres, if you want to help design that Thunderdome, that's fine. I want to,
Can
and
see
I
it
want to
now.
design the arena. You can design the building, and then the Hall of Fame, of course, would be pretty cool. What a great attraction that would be.
Right? I can see it now. It's like
Mhm.
as you fly over with the drone shot, you see this very large foosball guy laying on its back in the middle of this beautiful landscape, and in it comes, and of course the very top of the foosball player. That's where the arena sits. A round
That's
dome.
good stuff, Tom. I'm
And,
taking notes on that. The head is the arena. I like it.
And of course, you enter through the armholes.
I'm not sure where I want. I don't know if I want to know where we. I'm not sure I want that, but maybe we've gone off the tracks a little bit here. But you know what we're talking about. These are dreams. Everybody has them. Everybody dreams about
Sure.
where the sport could go. Heck, I've spent 30 years hoping and trying to get the sport to a certain level. It was awesome to be on ESPN
Oh,
with those two shows, with the movie and with the World Cup show. I felt like that was a big. I mean, I'm the only guy in Durango, I think, who has hosted an ESPN show.
really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Actually, there might be there might be some skiing guys and mountain
You
biking
never
guys.
know.
There probably are. Mountain
Hmm.
biking is huge here. In fact, the first mountain biking world championships was held right here in Durango, Colorado.
Well, that leads me to my next question. When it comes to something like a Hall of Fame Classic, wouldn't that be, a great thing if there was a specific network or some kind of entity that always telecast that event, from beginning to end, very much like an Inside Foos, let's say, but
Mhm.
with more panache and splash and the flourish of what we come to expect
Mhm.
from an ESPN.
Yeah, you're saying Inside Foods didn't do it as well as ESPN? Is that what you're saying?
Oh
I don't know. They were great.
no,
I missed them. But
I'm
um,
not saying that.
no, that would be cool. You think about like the U.S. Open. Maybe we could build this place in Southern California so we'd have like outdoor courts where you
Hmm.
you play some of your early round matches. You're out there in, on the Tony Spredeman court out there with
Ooh,
a couple little stands and a monitor and a scoreboard, and that's where you kind of play some of your early matches out in that beautiful
oh,
California
that would
sun
be great.
as you then work your way into the Thunderdome. And ideally, it should not be Mark Torres doing the announcements for Thunderdome,
Mm,
right there in person. But
probably
Mark's
true.
a great guy and does a great job. But anyway, but that would be kind of cool. Cool to have that, for sure. It would be neat if there was a network. We've had
Yeah.
interest from networks over the years, not sustained. I guess the longest would be Eurosport, in
Okay.
Europe, obviously,
Hmm.
that covered the World Cup and World Championships for 3 or 4 years and did it live on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. live. The World Championship, the World Cup final, the
Cool.
World Table Soccer World Cup final live on Eurosport.
Huh.
And I just remember, and I worked a couple of those, and I remember the director, a Frenchman, Xavier Carrere, and he smoked a lot of cigarettes, as the French tend to do sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he would be out in the truck, and we had this beautiful truck. You can actually go onto the ITSF website, and there are a couple of videos that we did while showing off this incredible video truck that we had sitting outside.
Wow.
And he would sit there, and because it was live, he would smoke, just chain smoke for 3, 4, 5 hours before, because it's live, right? We got to be everything ready. Everything has to be ready. And I would have him in my ear, right? I'd have my microphone on. I'd have a headset microphone doing the commentary in English, and he would be in my ear, and I would hear, and it would be French, but I would hear him just screaming at the cameraman, just screaming at them, and puffing on the cigarette, and just screaming at them in
Oh
French,
my.
because they went to the wrong, went wrong shot, or they were moving
Hmm.
the camera off a guy. You know how those things happen.
Oh yeah.
But it was always so much fun. It was like, I love doing live stuff. I love doing this show live. I love doing
Yep.
live commentary. But when you're live in front of potentially 1 million people, and that's how many they were getting. They were getting 2 to 5 million viewers with the replay included.
Okay.
When you're live there, it's like there's this extra added tension
Well,
that I love. And I know as someone who has been involved with radio for so long, you get it. You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
It
And
makes
there's
a huge
nothing better,
difference.
right?
Yeah.
There's nothing better.
No taking it
Sometimes
back.
you fall. Sometimes you fall, and there's no net there, and
Oops.
you got to figure it out. But I just remember that screaming at the cameraman in my ear, and I'm trying to commentate, and here's Tony now setting up the ball, and I got this French
Yeah.
guy screaming in my ear.
Oh my.
But it was a lot of fun, and Eurosport had a commitment for 3 or 4 years, and then what happened? They were bought by the Discovery Channel conglomerate.
Oh,
The
gotcha.
Discovery Channel is
Hmm.
not just Discovery Channel.
Oh.
They own a whole bunch of cable
Oh
channels,
yeah.
and ended up buying them as well, and went in a different direction. And we have not really sniffed that sort of
Mm.
situation since.
Yeah. If don't get me started on corporate takeovers of broadcast media. Don't get me
Yeah,
started.
that's true. I will not. Clear Channel. Yeah.
The devil. I mean, clear. Yeah.
You can say that stuff now, Tom. I have found that now, at this stage of our careers, we can literally come on here with these microphones in front of us and say whatever we want.
You're right about that. And when I worked for Clear Channel, and they don't exist anymore, by the way, um, it
Who got the
sucked.
last laugh there, huh?
It sucked. No.
Yeah.
Well, at least I was employed, but at the same time, a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues were summarily dismissed for no good reason. Just
No, and that story, we've seen that story, especially
Yeah.
recently throughout media and
Mhm.
even electronics and technology. And it's unfortunate, and it's business, right?
Yeah, it is.
Business is business, as they like to
Exactly
say.
it.
Well, I'm not a big believer in that saying. I think business can be balanced by
Mhm.
good customer service, good customer relations, compassion, and an understanding of what's really important. Sometimes hard decisions have to be made, but you got to weigh those against the cost to people
Well, think about
and employees.
the way people consume, things that consume, whether it's entertainment or food, whatever the case. There's certain brand names that are corporatized that get out there in front of everybody because they have more money. But it doesn't make the product any better,
No,
right?
no, it doesn't. And
So,
oftentimes it makes it worse, right? It makes it less
oh,
human. It makes
yeah.
it the connection of some sort of connection gets lost.
It's
And
because they want to
Mhm.
standardize their product,
Yeah.
and it has to be basically uniform across the bill.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you stop in a particular location in Durango, Colorado, as opposed to Albany, New York, they have to be
Mhm.
exactly the same.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yep. For sure.
therein lies the problem. You start to homogenize this thing that was at one time when it first started out, let's say, as an individual store or product or something that was just phenomenal and everybody loved it. And as soon as the bean counters come in and say, "Well, we've got to circulate this thing, from here to China," and then all of a sudden you've got this terrible product.
Yeah.
So
Inevitably, that happens quite often. Tom, the Foosball Hall of Fame, when Steve and I first talked about it, obviously we wanted to honor players. We wanted to recognize the history of the sport. But, we kind of also wanted to use it as a promotional tool,
mm-hmm.
and the best laid plans and all that. And I think it has been to some degree. Um, we're still trying to get some things off the ground. And
Okay.
despite what one of our colleagues on here, a man whose opinions I respect greatly, and despite some of his comments about the sport not being watchable, sellable, to the average consumer, and maybe even he suggested not even to players, and we know that's not true.
Right.
I said at the time a few weeks ago when he brought this up, maybe in an inappropriate time during the course of a really good interview with Doug
Right.
freaking Furry, but it's it is a sport that is sellable. It is a sport that's marketable. Joe Hesslinga saw enough to be able
Oh,
to make attempts in that direction, and maybe would have if COVID hadn't come,
right.
even more so, yeah, than he did. And what a great contributor. There's a guy maybe I gotta consider down the road for Hall of Fame.
Oh,
What a
no question.
couple of amazing things he has done, right? But I do believe that it is a sport that's marketable. I do believe it's a sport that can be organized in a fashion that allows it
Mm-hmm.
to get sponsors, allows it to get television coverage, regular television coverage, like you suggested. And I do believe that. And I continue to believe that. I've always believed that. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't have been doing it for now 30 years. And Tom, coming up here, I want to say in the next week,
Okay.
we'll mark the 30th anniversary of the first major championship that I ever worked as a commentator.
30th
And that
anniversary.
again,
Wow.
Long Beach seems to be the theme here. This was another Long Beach tournament, the U.S. Open in 1993,
Okay.
just after Steve Murray had seen what we do locally and suggested to Tornado that they bring us out on tour. We came out for kind of a tryout for 3 tournaments that year. The U.S. Open in early April, late March of 1993 was the first time. Then they set us up. I had one camera, I had one microphone. They set us up on some big storage box adjacent to table number 1, and we commentated. And then they invited us back for the Nationals, the Worlds, and then for good.
Wow.
And 30 years ago, and
30
it's
years. That's
in
well,
some ways it seems like
congratulations. I mean, that's
only
amazing.
yesterday. Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Very few things in media, especially, will last 30 years. I can only think of 1 or 2 radio shows
Mhm.
that were syndicated that lasted even
Besides
that
Larry
long.
King, I think it was about 120 years for Larry,
Right. Well,
for Larry King, but that was the exception.
there was
Um,
another one for public broadcasting called Car Talk, which lasted 30
I know
years.
of Car Talk.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
very good friend Larry Mantle is a talk radio host at KPCC in Pasadena, California, one of the most respected talk radio hosts in the Los Angeles area.
Okay.
Has been doing it now for 38 years and doing it
38.
really well. And I'd love to have Larry on. I'd love to go on Larry's show at some point, and I probably could.
Sure.
But he talks about the fact that when he and I were young, we were best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, we loved Chick Hearn, we loved Vince Scully, and we talked about wanting to get into the broadcasting business. He went
Mm-hmm.
about it in the traditional fashion. He went to school, he went to broadcasting school, he
Sure.
started as an intern. He has interviewed everybody from Barack Obama to Jack Nicholson to everyone else.
Wow.
One of the most respected. What a great guy he is, a conversationalist, KPCC or kpcc.com in Pasadena. But he has been at it for almost 40 years himself. And
That's
so it does
amazing.
happen. It
Yeah.
does happen, and you got to respect it when it does. But again, there's no way I would have gone this long doing what I do. And of course, it's scaled back a little bit now. But no way I would have done it this long if I didn't believe that the sport could reach levels that we've all envisioned it could. Some things have held us back, manpower, money, lots of things. But I still believe that at some point, and maybe after I'm gone, but at some point,
Well,
it could happen.
I think it can be sooner than that, Jim. I mean,
I
you
do
know,
too.
yeah, I think it's in fact I've felt it since the end of COVID. I've felt like going to Texas States for the first time after COVID was that energy there indicated to me that
Yeah.
there is plenty of interest and plenty of people that want this to go forward and make it positive. I don't think
I
there's any
agree.
question.
I agree. And to come full circle, Texas State 2021 was it? Yeah, 2021 was a very, very special weekend. It really was.
Wow.
I recall, during the ceremony, talking about just the feeling in the room
Yep.
and how much it meant to everyone, and the feeling of camaraderie and community that we felt there that weekend. And a lot of that due, of course, to certainly when you're talking about your greatest foosball man of all time, he's going to be right up there towards the top of the list, if not at the top of the list. That's Steve Murray.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, he's going to be on the show next week.
We're really looking forward to that. This is,
I love me some Steve, man. I love
right?
it. How are we going to keep Mark off, though? That's the thing. If Mark sees that Steve's coming on, we're going to get a visit from Mr. Mark Torres, no doubt about it, whether we want it or not.
That's in the tea leaves for sure. I don't think it takes much of a soothsayer to figure that one out. But no, it's really interesting. One other thing I just wanted to chat with you about you and your Hall of Fame career. If you hadn't done foosball commentating, what would you have been?
In a different dimension, would I have liked to have done if things were different, if the process was different, if I hadn't got addicted to foosball as a teenager? Absolutely a baseball commentator, no doubt about it.
Yes.
I don't have any doubt, Tom, that I could step in today and do Major League Baseball. I don't have any doubt about that. Now, I live in a small town here in Durango, and I love living here in this small town here in Durango with my family. Not much opportunities for baseball commentators here in this town. At this stage of my life, I don't want to be out on the road for 6 months a year either. And so at this stage, despite the fact that I truly believe I can commentate anything, first of all. And I've commentated darts. I've commentated billiards.
Wow.
And obviously foosball all these years. There might be a couple more in there that I've forgotten, but I would have been a baseball commentator. I love baseball. I know baseball, and I absolutely would have been my dream job. Now, my son loves baseball. His name's Kian.
Okay.
He is 8 years old, loves to play baseball, loves the Dodgers, loves Major League Baseball, knows it really well. We're going to be at Fenway Park for a ball game here in about 5 weeks.
You
We're going
are
to Boston.
Fenway Park.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
That's in my neighborhood.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, sort of. But not too far, really, as the crow flies.
Yeah.
No, I know.
No, it's close.
But yeah, and he loves baseball. He wants to be a baseball player. So, who knows? Right?
Yeah.
It's tough to be a baseball player. But I
Well-
told him, I said, look, kid, with your chops, with your genes, with what I can teach you, and your love of the game, which is the most important ingredient to that, he loves baseball.
Yeah.
I've never put pressure on him to perform well, to win or lose. That's irrelevant. I just want him to love it. If he loves it, the rest will take care of itself.
Yep.
If he loves baseball, if he gets any of Dad's broadcasting skills, he's going to be, as he says, a baseball pronouncer.
Ooh. That's the legacy right there. That's great. That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine, the day you go and sit down in front of the TV or even for that matter, a radio, and listen to your son do his first commentating, his first game.
That would be amazing. It really would. I will give him all the help, and I will make sure he goes through a more traditional way and goes to broadcasting school. et cetera. Yeah, but the biggest thing is to just do it.
Sure.
That's the thing. You put in those hours, you do it, right? Anybody who's listened to anything from 1993 knows, and they loved me for some reason. I listened to that and I'd say, how in the heck did they like that? That was awful. But I feel like I've come a long way since, and I've improved every year since then. And I feel like even today, and despite the fact that I'll probably work maybe 5 events this year, and I haven't worked an event. I haven't worked an event since early November. This is the longest stretch I've gone.
That's a break
in 30 years.
Yeah, that's a big break.
But obviously Texas State, Tornado Worlds, Bart O'Hearn in August in Austin. I'll be there for 100% for sure. Love that event. Colorado State. And that'll be about it. But even though I've scaled it back, I still feel like I'm as good, if not better, than I ever have.
No question.
At this stage.
Question. So your voice is still solid. You've still got the knowledge that no one else can duplicate. There's just no way. It could take, another person 10, 15 years and they still wouldn't have all that knowledge. So you can't duplicate
and the knowledge is important. It is. And really? An understanding of history and played really a pretty deep knowledge, I think, strategically. But it's more than that. It's for me, what makes a great announcer is feel. It's knowing innately where to go with things. It's the timing of a delivery. It's the connection you make with a game. You oftentimes, Tom, when I'm commentating, I am 100% playing that match. I'm right there with those guys, right? I'm thinking along with everybody on that table, and I'm in it. I'm there. And sometimes I'll sit back and just listen to myself because I am not thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm just going, right? And it's a feel thing. And and you just go with it. You say what you see and you trust that you just open your mouth and whatever comes out is okay. And because of that, at times I sit back and I listen to myself and I go, that guy's pretty good. He's not bad.
Now, all good broadcasters go through phases. We all have those moments that we wish we could take back.
Yes.
Give me an idea. What for you was that one moment you wish you could take back as a commentator?
There's a couple probably. I mean, obviously, every once in a while I have miscalled a pull shot. But probably the biggest one. I'm not sure I've ever admitted this online, but it's not that big a thing. But I went through the entire 2006 World Cup event mispronouncing badly a German lady's name. A name that was Klug. I called, and I know this doesn't seem like a big deal. I called her Krug. Okay, all along, for some reason I got it was an R. First international tournament ever, right? Jet lag, whatever. I'm not going to make an excuses. I kind of am. But I called it all week, and I went, oh my God. I got home and I saw that, and I went, oh my God. So I literally went back in afterwards, post-production, and I went over every Klug, and I said, Krug. And I went and I replaced all 161 of them.
Really? Wow.
One at a time. Because I didn't want her watching that and thinking, this is one of the biggest events of my life. I'm playing. And at that time, the World Cup teams were made up of both men and women. And she was on a very good German team, and we did 2 or 3 of their matches. And I didn't want her thinking, this is like the biggest, most amazing event I've ever played in. And this stupid American announcer the only announcer, mispronounces my name throughout the entire event. So I went back and did it. She never realized it. I have seen her several times since. She has come up and given me a big hug.
Okay.
And is a wonderful woman, Susanna Klug. And I went back and did that. And that, obviously there have been other times that have been just completely embarrassing, most of them involving Mark Torres, and mostly because it was him that was the embarrassing part. But but there have been others, as every announcer has their issues. I've never, a lot of times you see these videos of newscasts where the anchor, she thinks she's off the air, right? Yes. And she drops a couple of F-bombs, and it's awesome. It is so good. And they never work again. and I haven't had one quite like that, but there have been a few where I have got a little red in the face. But I'm a person also who prepares, Tom. I'm prepared. I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm excellenceist,
Right.
if
Right.
that's a word,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And so I'm going to make sure that all my ducks are in a row, that I'm prepared for it. And even before each match, I have my little thing I go through, both in terms of who's playing in their numbers and also where I want to be. Because I was always a believer as a player, and I know we don't have much time left here, but as a player, my belief was always the inner game of foosball, or
Hmm.
the inner game of tennis, which was
Yes.
the inner game of foosball for me, and a great book by Ram Dass, Be Here Now.
Oh.
Be in the moment, right? Live in the moment. It's the secret to life. It
Oh.
really is.
No question.
But it's the secret to being a successful athlete, a successful
Hmm.
foosball player. You're just there now. You're not judging what could happen, what did happen. You're just there. Whatever happens, happens. You're just focused in the moment, doing the best you can. And I do the same thing before every match I do as a commentator. I check in with my senses, put myself in the moment, and then whatever happens, happens.
Wow. And the rest is history. Well, I do appreciate the candor when it comes to those embarrassing moments, because it happens to all of us, especially
Oh, it
with
does. It's happened a few times on this show, Tom, for
yeah.
all of us. Of
Well,
course, it
well,
has.
there's that, but that's a little different in the
Yeah,
sense that
it is.
we can edit this afterwards if we need to. But and so, is there anything else about the Hall of Fame at this stage in your career that you wish, if you had the magic wand? I mean, it could be many things, but what's the biggest thing you'd want to change right now when it comes to the Hall of Fame?
I want to make sure, my theme always when I ran the Hall, we only want the very best of the very best.
Hmm.
All right. And what that means. And I'm not going to suggest that it hasn't been that way in the last 13 years or so.
Oh, sure.
I'm not going to suggest that. But, that's for me, you look at baseball, and although there's been a few exceptions maybe in the last few years when there's like 6 or 7 different committees now that will bring players in. Maybe there's a few instances of players who were very good players,
Hmm.
excellent players, all-star players, but probably not, in my mind at least, Hall of Fame players. Because for me, the Hall of Fame means, like I said, the very best of the very best, the cream of the crop, the elite. And I want to make sure that it stays that way. I think this year we have 2 individuals going in who both are that. You have one going in, of course, with Scotty Weidman,
Hmm.
with those 2 back-to-back world championships, the world championship appearances, the wins as a goalie and a forward, and in the great performances in singles. And Gina Smith, of course, or 5, I believe it's 5 world championships she won in a very short period of time. But I want to make sure that continues. So whatever that takes, whether it's having that committee of all the Hall of Famers, and then having a secondary committee to kind of vet that
Okay.
and make sure that only the very best of the very best gets in. And I felt like during my tenure as the chairman of the Hall of Fame, that I think we achieve that every year. I don't think there was anyone who went in on my watch, and most of the time that was one player. Eventually, it got to be 2 that really didn't deserve it
Okay.
for one reason or the other. And I want to make sure that's the thing. A Hall of Fame, again, should be only the top of that pyramid, the very top of all the thousands and thousands of players that have played the game. I want to make sure that we really focus in on that 100, 200 players as time goes on
Hmm.
that we're really super deserving.
Well, I'd say that would be it's doable. I think
Yeah.
we just have to maintain that level of standard, and of course, as long as they don't run
Yeah.
out of players.
I think that's not going to be an issue. But I guess the other thing too is because we've seen the management of the Hall of Fame change a little bit over the years,
Mm.
a couple of times. It's not going to be like it is now forever.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that the Hall of Fame itself is this separate thing. It's not part of IFP. It's not part of USTSA like it was back in the day.
Hmm.
It's not part of anyone's individual tour, but it's an independent thing, ideally run by, ad nauseum, an independent federation. This
Yeah.
is who it should be. It should be an independent from any promoter,
Hmm.
from any tour. It should be its own thing. And yes, work out a deal to where it can be part of a tournament. Obviously, it's best to have the induction ceremonies at tournaments, but it needs to be separate. It needs to be ruled separately.
Sure.
No promoter, no one with a vested interest financially in the sport should really have any anything to do with what I think should be an independent Hall of Fame. And hopefully that'll continue. And as long as I'm involved with the sport, I'm always going to make that clear as far as that goes.
Sure.
With whoever is running the hall.
Well, I think that well, for the near future and for the far future, as long as people love this sport, the odds are good. The odds are good.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? It's loving the sport. It's having good times at tournaments. It's enjoying the process of becoming a better player, whatever that is. Whether you want to be the best player in the world, or whether you just want to be someone who can compete at tournaments. And if you win, you win. You lose, but you tried. And you did your best. Whatever that is, moving forward, it's all about the love of the game.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Absolutely. Well, next week, Steve Murray. When it comes to
Love
the
it.
Hall of Fame, yeah, we're looking forward.
Yeah,
to
and hopefully, Adam, you're going to need next week. You're going to need a letter from your
doctor's
doctor
note.
for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
and maybe in a sputum sample that might help, but well,
Maybe
never
so.
mind.
And the other thing too is maybe Adam just needs to work the majors like I do.
Oh, there you
know,
go.
working every little tournament, Adam. It's killing you, kid. It's killing you.
Yeah. It's really, you have to use the majors as your elixir, because that gets the real adrenaline going right there.
It does.
Well.
But kudos to Adam for being there, even if
Yep.
he's upstairs in room 803, laying in bed, watching reruns of Jerry Springer.
For
and
this
not
show,
feeling so
who
good.
knows?
Lots of liquids, buddy. Lots of liquids.
Get better soon.
Feel better.
Get better soon. And to Hannah D. Smith, of course, things are happening, as we speak in Mississippi and that part of the country. There have been devastating storms coming through. An F4 was recorded yesterday, and another F2 today. So we just, Hannah.
It's been the strangest year, Tom. There were never tornadoes in winter. There never were. And now it's a common thing. Now it happens. And again, we all know tornadoes are formed by that cold air mass coming up against a warm air mass with a degree of moisture.
Yep.
And that just never happened in winter, but now it is. Now we're seeing 80-degree temperatures in Birmingham and 10 below in St. Louis at the same time.
Yep.
And then you get these two things butting up against each other, creating these incredible storms.
Yeah. And LA had a tornado this last week.
It sure did.
When did that
how
happen
about
last?
that? I never saw a tornado the entire time I lived there. And there's been a couple or three of them.
Daytime tornadoes.
Yeah. Blew the roof right off a place. Yeah. It was something. That was that same day where I was out there. We had 2 inches of rain. It just rained constantly with some high winds, and we stayed inside all day.
Well, that's not what we do at LA for.
But I did wear shorts.
Yeah, you did.
I wore shorts because it was still like 53 degrees, which would have been the warmest day of the year here in Chicago.
See, that's how I feel. People don't understand. I work with students from all over the country, and one of my first questions is, "Hey, so what's it like in Seattle today?" And they'll be like, "Oh, it's sunny and 50 degrees," and I'll be like, "Well, it's about 10 here in upstate New York, but hey, it's sandals weather."
Yeah.
And they just kind of look at me like, "What? What did you just say?"
And coming from an ex-SoCal now, I mean, I was out there. I literally wore shorts. We went to the safari park, the San Diego Zoo Safari Park Friday. A great place. Awesome. The kids loved it. Just an amazing place. They even had platypuses, if you can believe that.
Platypuses.
But I wore shorts. I wore shorts. And
cool.
I said, this is great. Shorts and a T-shirt, 53 degrees. It was great.
What's your temp right now in
let me check. We are at 25. We're at 25 degrees. Had a little bit of snow today, just a little, nothing stuck.
Okay.
I think hopefully we're past the sticking snow. We've had just record totals.
We had a little wet snow yesterday, but it was today got to be 50 and sunny, but very windy. So
we'll get down to 12 or so tonight, I think, which is it's pretty standard. But not for March. It's spring, for God's sake. It's spring.
It's supposed to be like this.
Hey, it turned out to be okay, Tom. It turned out to be okay. I brought the life preserver with me, tossed it out to you. Yeah, I sat here for a little while as I tried to get on the air, and oh my goodness. It was nice of you to announce the winner of amateur singles twice.
Yeah.
Which was excellent. Congratulations to Tom.
Sometimes I have to do things on the fly just to make it happen.
Yes, you do. Live radio, buddy. Live radio.
But
peace, everybody.
Yeah, and great job at Oklahoma State. And this coming week on Tuesday, we're going to be talking Canadian foosball. We've got the first Leonhardt Open coming up next weekend in Montreal. And the promoter, Matteo Biggs, is going to join us on Tuesday for that. So we're looking forward to that for Foos Week with Hannah Smith and Adam Gilson and myself, as long as everybody's healthy. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's good. Biggie will be good. He's a fun guy.
Yeah, no, he sounds like a really
Mathieu.
Mathieu. That's how you pronounce it. I see. I knew you would know that. Mathieu. Okay. It's hard to know, but Mathieu Biggs. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, just call him Matt.
Okay. Matt works. Okay. But that's Foos Week this Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Eastern. That would be 9 o'clock Central. But looking forward to that. And in the meantime, next week, episode number 153 of Foos Talk Live, as we continue with our Hall of Fame classic episodes.
Foosball tournaments are everywhere. Foos Talk Live proudly presents a weekly update of events near you with the Foos Talk Live Tournament Beat. Here's what's up. Event Sports Grill presents the Hall of Fame Classic Warm-Up Foosball Tournament, March 31st through April 1st. Event Sports Grill, Riverside, California. Here comes the first annual Canadian Leonhardt Championship, March 31st through April 2nd, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's the IFP Hall of Fame Classic 2023, April 12th through the 16th at the Golden Nugget Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Celebrate spring with the next 518 Foosball Smashdown, April 15th at Trickshot Billiards and Wicked Eatery, Clifton Park, New York. The Masters Open Championship is April 27th through the 30th at Holiday Inn, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida. Don't miss the $10,000 Illinois State 10th Annual Foosball Championship, May 5th through the 7th. Poplar Creek Bowl, Higgins Road, Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Here comes the next OFA Tornado Foosball Tournament, May 5th through the 7th at Tailgaters in Ottawa, Canada. Power Kick presents the 2023 North Carolina Bonzini Open, May 19th through the 21st at Snooker's Billiards, Raleigh, North Carolina, all to benefit the Boys and Girls Clubs. Get ready for the Texas State Foosball Championship, May 26th through May 29th in Dallas, Texas. The Canadian Pro Tour by Canada Foosball presents the Edmonton Foosball Championships, June 16th through the 18th. Edmonton Foosball Club, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The Toronto Foosball Club presents the Tornado Foosball Tournament, July 14th through the 16th. Toronto Foosball Club, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's the Bardo Hearns Celebration Foosball Tournament, August 17th through the 20th at the Kalahari Resort, Round Rock, Texas. Make your plans now for the 2023 Tornado Championships, August 30th through September 4th, Clarion Hotel, Lexington, Kentucky. Each week, we do our best to give you the most up-to-date listing of foosball tournaments near you. If you have an event you would like to add, send us all the details at info@foosballradio.com. Tune in every week for the Foos Talk Live Tournament Beat. Foos Talk Live is a product of Foosball Radio. With gratitude, we recognize our Foosball Radio Patreons. Our Foos Talk Live sponsor, original-leonhardt-usa.com. And thanks to InsideFoos.com for use of their audio during the show. Tune in again next week for another episode of Foos Talk Live. In the meantime,
We'll see you foozin'.